Travis, this is why you're here.
Yeah.
The issue is Deb and I basically drank the Kool-Aid. We saw the water. We got the glimmer. We got the glimpse into what it would be like to have nervous systems of a whole society, basically focusing on principles of hierarchical regulation and where social co-regulation becomes the pinnacle of what we want out of it being a transformative human.
That is Dr. Stephen Porges, who's a renowned researcher and scientist, celebrated for his groundbreaking polyvagal theory, which has significantly impacted the trauma therapy community. His work emphasizes the importance of physiological states in shaping behavior and highlights the role of social engagement in human evolution. And he has been introduced by many like this, that Steve is a researcher, but he has a heart like a clinician.
Right? When the cues of danger outweigh the cues of safety, you're going to move into a survival response, because that's what an adaptive survival response, that's what it's meant to do. And I love that Steve always taught me, you put adaptive in front of survival response, always.
And that is Deb Dana, who is a distinguished clinician and advocate of polyvagal theory in therapeutic settings. Her work focuses on translating scientific principles into practical therapeutic strategies, emphasizing the importance of connection and regulation in mental health. And she has been recognized as a leading figure in integrating polyvagal theory into clinical practice. Welcome to Wired for Connection, a polyvagal podcast. I am your host, and my name is Travis. Deb and Steve, I am so excited to be part of kind of what the Polyvagal Institute is doing and kind of part of this origin story for Wired for Connection, this kind of podcast. And so I thank you both just for being here and just taking your time out today to share a bit about the story. And so let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a bit about kind of the origin story of how you guys met and got into this line of work?
Well, we're going to have to start because Deb called me, so let's go there.
On a phone, no less, right? I mean,
Yes.
Back in the day when people picked up a phone and talked, it was lovely.
Was it a rotary phone or was it a... I'm saying that because I'm also... I had one. That was my first phone.
Wasn't quite that long ago. However, yeah. I'll thank Alan Shore for making the introduction, because Alan had been to Maine and done a workshop for my group, and I had asked him if he knew you, because I was trying to get an invitation to connect with you to come to Maine. He said, "Oh, I know Steve," and he made the introduction, and then I called you up, and it was lovely. It was lovely. You were very friendly, which is what I know of you. And you were. I was intimidated to call you, which is, that was a long time ago, and you were like my hero. And I had read Polyvagal Theory, your book, and thought, oh my gosh, this man has offered me something that was missing from my clinical work. And I just wanted to talk to you and have you come and explain it in a little more depth to me and to my fellow clinicians, so that we could become polyvagal guided in our work. Yeah.
So it was really quite a lovely weekend. We were there with you. Sue and I were there and felt very welcomed. And of course, you had to promise us a lot of lobster. I remember that.
Yeah, a lot of lobster.
And it was quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always been, because that actually, I know exactly what year that was. So that was August 2013. And I will share why that's so. That was the last talk I had before I had to go in for surgery.
Yeah.
So I had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And basically, this was the last talk before I went through the procedures. And it's always nice to be with people who are engaging and interested in who you are and what you do. So it was kind of like a time landmark for me. Yeah. And so I do remember coming out and enjoying it very much, and actually enjoying meeting Bob and talking and having a good time, learning about the minor league baseball team in Maine.
Right.
But the part that is, again, we need to really put this out there. I have always viewed myself as a researcher and a scientist, and I always find myself feeling very flattered that people who are actually doing the work, meaning working with clients, find the ideas of interest and they can use it and they can basically bring it to life.
Yeah.
And that really has been our relationship and our learning in a sense, talking about the ideas, but you as one of the first major people taking the ideas and literally translating it into a therapeutic strategy. And, the point, and we've had this discussion multiple times, the issue was these were principles that could be embedded in any type of therapeutic strategy. So it was not like you have a polyvagal treatment model. You're polyvagal informed in your treatment model. And that was not done by mistake or by accident. It was like saying, I'm not branding it. I'm basically saying these are principles that people can use.
Yeah.
And when I saw what you did with it, actually it wasn't at that point. It was when we met again and we met at Bessel's meeting. And then we talked about doing the book together. And now it's back to you.
I love that you have that belief about your work, about polyvagal theory, that it's an approach, that it can be applied anywhere, and that it doesn't become a protocol, right? That's not what it is. And your generosity in wanting it to be out there in the world, I think is so important to respect and to follow with. So, as a mentor in the beginning, as somebody who was, saying, yes, keep doing what you're doing. And that belief that we offer it generously to the world has been really important. We don't create a protocol. We create an approach. We don't certify people. You can't be certified in a theory. You can be informed by. And I think that has meant so much to me and is what you and I continue to believe is the way to move forward.
Well, it's so important to me that we don't get into competition about brands. And I still remember in the areas of somatic therapies and areas of mental health, branding became very important because it also meant livelihood. So you had this dialectic between the passion to be helpful and then people had to make a living. And so you start getting into various gray areas of competition. And I didn't want that. I saw polyvagal. The term I used to use is there's something called the cipher, which is in a sense, a way of decoding anything. And I saw polyvagal theory as a cipher of a major component of human experience. And I just wanted to see talented, brilliant, intuitive people take the principles and then expand it into the world that they knew better than I did.
Yeah.
So what I often would say is that, one can do research, one can create theory, but someone has to apply it for it to be meaningful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah. Well, thank you my life changed when I read your book. Truly, it was a before and after moment for me. But then it really changed again when we met. The one of the memories I have of that time in Maine was you and Sue and me on that stone beach looking for heart-shaped rocks. Right? To me, that's like, I have a picture of that. I have a picture of Sue holding a rock, and you, in back of Sue hugging Sue, and it was like, that to me was this beautiful, heartfelt moment. So, yeah. And I think my work, bringing your work to life in the way I do, has been filled with heart all along. Because you're right, we're not in competition with people. It's a collaboration, and from that beautiful regulated state of ventral, there's abundance, right? There's plenty for everyone. Yeah.
For me, okay, so I was welcomed into the community of, let's say, trauma community from two different, let's say, parts of the country, the East Coast people with Bessel and the West Coast people with Marion Solomon, Dan Siegel, Alan Shore, and different perspectives, but great passion, great insights. And for me, I would come to those meetings and I would talk. And what I would always say is, unlike my other academic colleagues, of course, the academic colleagues who would be invited to these talks would come in, fly in, give their talk, and then they'd leave. Yeah. And they wouldn't spend time listening to the other talks, or meeting the people in the audience who often were either therapists or people who were on their own journey. And I took this as an opportunity to go to school. Right. And so I learned because I felt, in a sense, that since the ideas were more theoretical, I felt I didn't know the experiential part of it. Not to the level that my colleagues did. But over the decades, and now it's been decades, I actually feel reasonably confident that I have a good sense of the experiential because I've listened. I've listened to both therapists and clients. And, and I'm sure you have this as well, Deb. We get emails.
All the time.
And emails, what do the emails tell us? They tell us that once they grasp onto these principles, there was a transformative experience for them. Life made sense. Yeah. So you talk about glimmers. I talk about a sense of experiencing gratitude. It's at those moments that I understand what gratitude is about. It's for me, it's this ability to translate an idea into a glimmer in other people's faces and minds.
Yeah. And we've presented together a fair number of times. And so we both know that experience of so many people simply want to share their moment with us. They want to tell us how polyvagal theory has changed their lives. And I think for me, yes, it can feel exhausting sometimes, right? But it never gets old. Hearing how this work has shaped people's lives in a new direction is amazing.
Well, and Deb, it changes one's role in life when you start realizing that your presence is important to others. Just being there, just acknowledging their presence can be literally transformative in their lives. Then you say, I'm here. And what I actually came up with this other type of way of expressing it, and that is, I now feel that we only have one gift to give, and that's our own accessibility. And in being accessible, what does that do to the other? It opens them up.
Yeah.
And it's a gift that keeps giving.
Yeah. I love that giving. What I keep coming to mind as you guys are talking, just even hearing this back and forth is this theme of giving generously, of generosity, and not where my mind is going, not othering other modalities, but it's more of this kind of coming together integration of we're giving generously, not to create a certification, I think you mentioned earlier, which I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think there's a need and time and place, but something that you both have co-created has been this thing about, the whole thing is about giving away presence, and how does that sitting with others, like that to me is just standing out majorly.
Well, you can't be an effective co-regulator unless that is part of your persona. And again, whether we talk about, I flip into the academic world, which is very much a pragmatic and almost business world, except rather than money, it's called intellectual property. And people are continually leveraging their presence by their intellectual property. And what Deb and I are really saying is we're leveraging our presence by how it impacts on others, how it makes them feel better, more real. And I really have bought into this whole concept that all therapy, and primarily the therapy that Deb's been involved with in this community of people dealing with trauma, all therapy is about re-embodiment, coming back to your body, being safe in your body, feeling your body. In a sense, another form of co-regulation that I'm now using in my descriptions is literally a co-regulation between the organ above your neck and the organs below your neck. And in a sense, what we don't realize is that the culture that we're in has recruited or informed our cortex to inhibit everything else in our body. And we call that mental effort. We call that being smart. We call it being worked too hard, stressed. We call it all these other types of things. But functionally, when you look at, in a sense, the neurophysiology of it, it's cortical inhibition of the brainstem's native ability to regulate our organs to help us heal, grow, and restore. Health, growth, and restoration.
And that when you talk about that, it takes me back to, and I love that you met Bob when he was still Bob before his stroke, and then knew him after his stroke. And you were one of the first people I reached out to when Bob had his stroke to say, what do I do? Because I was thinking you'd give me this great science about new stroke procedures to recover from. And I don't know if you remember what you said, but you said that my job was to be regulated so that Bob's body could do the necessary task of rehabilitation. So that's health, growth, restoration, that he needed me as a regulating presence. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so it's challenging. So, but the part you left out is when you are human, as we are, and we're in a situation in which a loved one really very ill or loses function, it's a trigger to our own nervous system. It's a type of grieving. It's a trauma. But we have to step back and say, what can we do? So we have to respect that we're reacting. Yep. This model is really becoming very, very ingrained in my mind. That I'll give you the more recent example is that what went on in Israel with the Hamas intrusion. The therapist contacted me and they said, well, what can we do? Now, I was on the phone on Zoom with them for a few minutes. And I realized basically they were angry and scared at the same point. And what they wanted to do, like most people who are totally mobilized, is to work with their clients. And they wanted to help fix the situation because they had internalized their responsibility. I listened to them and I looked at them. I said, they can't do therapy, not in that state, because what they are doing is broadcasting their own physiological state to their clients. And I said, you need to respect that your body is responding, but now you need to learn strategies to co-regulate with your colleagues before you see your clients. And it's a message that we think that in doing, we're fixing and helping. But it's not in doing, it's in the quality of what we are doing.
Yeah, I think I tell people in my trainings, the first question you have to ask is, what does my nervous system need in order to find the way to regulation? And I can't do anything else. And then I can ask the question, what does that other nervous system need in this moment? Not to be regulated, but just what does it need to feel a little safer, to feel a little more welcomed. But yeah, I think we do. We want to do from a sympathetic drivenness rather than a regulated.
It's so cultural in a sense. We feel that if we're not doing actively something, we're not doing.
Yeah.
And in the case of like in the situation with Bob, or the situation, even let's say my own post-surgical experience, all I want, or all we really want, is someone to be there.
Yeah.
And the person who is there can be triggered by what's happening to us. But it's not our responsibility as the one who's going through surgery or having a stroke to co-regulate our
right.
So in a sense, we have to understand that in times we ourselves are going to have to literally contain and understand what our body is saying to us, learn how to regulate it, not in a state like this, but with, let's say, my cat that's sitting on the chair, your cat, or friends, or go for a walk, where we understand that our body can be calmed down, but it needs to be acknowledged that not necessarily at this moment. So I've been really rephrasing this whole issue of both understanding empathy and compassion from a polyvagal perspective. Empathy is neuroception. I see pain in others. I feel pain. Well, I'll tell you, empathy is not very helpful.
No.
If you want to, in a sense, support someone who's in pain.
Right.
And in fact, in the trauma world, what is one of the features that most clients say? They don't want to talk about their trauma to others because the others start grimacing and asking for retribution, when all the client or the person wants is really someone to share with them the moment that they can express their own bodily feelings.
That place of being with. And if I'm dysregulated, I become a threat to anybody else's nervous system. Not a restorative resource, but a threat. So,
But you're a natural.
Well, I have to say there are many moments when I think I was a threat to Bob's nervous system because it's hard to stay regulated,
But I would say the understanding of that is a very good educational, if we can step back from it. And of course you would be. It was important to you, your life. There was a dysregulation of predictability. It's not merely everything is thrown into the wind. And, it's not like we're 15-year-olds and we have different dreams and things move on. This is our life. And in a sense, your life was really kind of like planning out the golden years, we want to use that. And now everything is something different.
Yeah. I like that, step back is so important to be able to step back and have a bit different perspective. Yeah.
And to appreciate that mixed into one's own grief and sorrow can also be anger.
Sure. Yeah. We get all the states going all the time, don't we?
Well, the states, we have the states. They're not that complex. The narratives are.
The stories that the states bring are quite fun. Yes, exactly.
And I think if you and I, and hopefully you more than I, leave something for humanity, it's that the story is, I always basically make it very simple and say we have this very creative brain, big brain. It takes the information and makes a narrative in which we are always the one that has been, an injustice has been acted out on us. So we're always going to come out heroic or victimized in our narratives. And the issue is once we step back and say, look, the physiology has triggered this. I only have a few options of labeling this. Maybe if my body calms down, different options occur.
Yeah.
So it's the space. This is what Viktor Frankl said. The space between stimulus and response is where free will lives. And what I say is the stimulus creates neuroception, but the space between neuroception and the behavior is where compassion can live, including self-compassion. So if we can, in a sense, say, oh, my body's reacting, and we can literally take a time and say, my body's reacting, not it's all because of you.
Right. So you do compassion and self-compassion, and I usually start with a bit of curiosity because compassion and self-compassion is a huge reach. Compassion, okay. Curiosity is like, oh, I can start there. A drop of curiosity, and I know I'm on the right path at least, right?
You are, in a sense. It's because you can articulate it in a way. For me, there is curiosity as well because it's the peculiar, in a sense. If I get triggered, the curiosity gets triggered as well for me because I start asking, why is this important to me to react?
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And then I start saying, well, there are really not that many things that are important to me. I mean, I don't mean to say, but, there are things that are trivial that get you feeling like you have to react. And I go on and say, why is this happening? That's the curiosity. But you have, in a sense, this beautiful therapist, co-regulatory mind and presence that it works. You do it naturally.
I think it's so true, too, that what you guys are saying is the interplay between nervous system response and the strong narratives that we tend to derive that, at least my experience working with clients, even my own personal life, where I've gotten more stuck is not so much my nervous system. It's been, what's that story I'm telling myself? And that's the stickiest part, is that story can override sometimes. I see that the nervous system getting stuck.
Now, Travis, you have to ask, why does the story override? It's because the character in that story has to be in the best light in terms of your narrative. You want to be the hero or the victim. You do not want to be the one aggressor or the one that's hurtful to others.
Right.
It's interesting because we therapists love story. We love story. And yet, if you get stuck in the story, it's like, I like to say you're swimming upstream against the current, because what you really need to do is get to state and begin to change the state. And then you're going with the flow because the story organically changes as the state changes. So, but that's hard to do.
So Deb, how many people have said to you, oh, you mean that my bodily state impacts on my behavior?
Yeah, right.
Or the way I think?
Yeah.
You mean it's not all in my mind?
Yeah. It's, and what's fascinating, Steve, is you give people a tiny experience of it, right? So you take your, beautiful 3 organizing principles, and really, if I'm just working with neuroception and hierarchy, you give them a tiny little experience, and it's like the light bulb goes off for them. I love that moment, right? When they go, oh, I get it now, because they get it here. It's not here. It's now here. It's like, oh, and now they're hooked, which is lovely, right?
Yeah.
And if we think about co-regulation, that 3rd organizing principle, that's why it works. Because I am with, and I'm not telling them how to or giving them an agenda. I'm just with and allowing them, showing them the map and saying, try it out.
And the part that I really would like to emphasize now is that our society talks about self-regulation.
I know.
Without understanding that co-regulation creates the resources for self-regulation.
Yeah.
And it's, again, this notion that we are a single organism, and we tend not to respect our own evolutionary history as a social species.
Yeah.
And that's really where polyvagal theory comes in. It says, you share things with reptiles and other vertebrates, but we are a social species.
Yeah.
And what that means is that for us to really feel safe, we have to feel safe with others.
Yeah.
And here's a question. I'm going to drop this in because this is an interesting topic, and then we'll get into kind of how you guys see and play out the 3 organizing principles. But this sparked my mind. We're in a society that, and I've seen this too, in comparison to what we're talking about, the polyvagal theory, and that we're socialized, that we're wired for connection. This concept of self-healing, that it's this push for self, like almost as a capital S, self. Can you guys speak a little bit about that?
Actually, let me start on that. And let's start even with like illness like cancer, which is kind of like an interesting prototype of a dysregulatory system. And what does society say? It says you need to fight cancer. Well, those of us who have had cancer realize that it's not fighting cancer, it's learning from cancer. And it's not like you're saying you welcome it, but you are understanding where it's coming from and what you can do to optimize your own health. And so what we end up doing when we say fight, we're saying we're going to recruit our sympathetic nervous system. And that then creates all the background states and physiological reactions that literally create chronic diseases, chronic pain, chronic disorders. So it has to be a much more sophisticated one, saying you need to allow your body to do what it evolved to do, which is to heal. It's not a cortical event. It's the cortex allowing those lower brainstem areas to promote healing. And this is complicated for our society. We want to fix it. We want to fix it immediately. The irony is that once we, in a sense, remove that inhibition of the brainstem, in a sense, get that anger and that fight and that mobilization off the cortex, guess what happens to the cortex? As the lower brain structures start to regulate, the signals up to the cortex now become much more creative, expansive, and more interesting. So as opposed to people ruminating, which is again features, which is part of this inhibitory bit, people who are, when they're trying to relax, they jump out of bed because they got to do that email or check that message. That's all inhibitory of those brainstem systems. It creates problems with it.
I love that, Steve. I love that you talk about the path through cancer is not that fight, but the learning from, being with, being informed by something. So
there's a real interesting, there are interesting data out there, like outcomes from cancer based on heart rate variability data. And what they're saying is if you have low heart rate variability, your Gleason scores, which means your numbers, are destiny. Wow. If you have high heart rate variability, which reflects more of this autonomic feedback loops, more regulation, then Gleason numbers are almost unrelated to outcome.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. And I think, you talk about the self-healing. I think we do live in a society, at least here in the Western world, where independence is privileged over connection. So we need to find do it myself, right? And for many of us who grew up where doing it ourselves was the safest experience, didn't have others predictably regulated others to depend on, that just feeds right into it, right?
Yeah.
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 It's not like we haven't learned our lessons. The question is, why was the curriculum set up that way? And because it doesn't lead to health, it doesn't lead to transformative experiences, and it doesn't lead to creativity.
Yeah.
So it challenges us as a resource. Yet that's what our society does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why. So I think, Travis, this is why you're here.
Yeah.
The issue is, Deb and I basically drank the Kool-Aid. We saw the water. We got the glimmer. We got the glimpse into what it would be like
Yeah.
to have nervous systems of a whole society, basically focusing on principles of hierarchical regulation and where social co-regulation becomes the pinnacle of what we want out of it being a transformative human. In a society that said you can't trust others, you need to accumulate, and we measure transformative experience by how much you accumulate. And that's really the society we live in. And we're all victim of that. We accumulate degrees in academics. We accumulate publications and grant dollars, sphere of influence, citations. This is how we define ourselves. And the issue is, do we define ourselves in terms of our relationships? And the history of humanity has always been, I would say, the true history of humanity has been in terms of relationships.
Yeah.
So to me, when people, this is how people used to introduce me at these clinical talks. Steve's a researcher, but he has a heart like a clinician.
There you go.
And to me, that was the greatest compliment anyone could give me.
Yeah, and
I like that.
I go back to when we were working on the clinical applications book. And that's where the polyvagal family began. That, we would find people to do a chapter, and you would send me the name of the person and say, here's another member of our polyvagal family. Right? And so that's where it started. And now every time I teach, I say, you are now part of the polyvagal family. It's a huge family now, right?
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's all about community and connection, that co-regulation, that on the foundation of having people in our lives we can count on, we can then self-regulate from safety rather than out of survival. And that's okay. You can do both, but you have to have the community first.
Yeah.
So, Deb, what I'm seeing, and this is really, I see as our goal, was create a community that was self-organizing and basically sustainable, self-organizing and expanding. And where people would take the principles, move it into education, move it into business, and watching that occur is really touching.
Yeah.
I agree. I say that when people say, so how do I do this with, and they give me their specialty, and I say, I don't know. My job is to help you really embody the 3 organizing principles, and then you're going to go figure it out because you are a creative human who's going to bring it to life in whatever way you want to. And I think we're seeing that happen, right? All around the world. It's exciting. Yeah.
And I love that the polyvagal family. And I mean, part of what you both and others have created is that invitation, that call to people's kind of deep souls, or whatever word you want to use, nervous systems, if there's this family. And I'm part of that family as well. That part of even doing this is like it's spreading and growing. And it is an invitation. It's this deep connection in the soul, which I think allows for self-healing but the foundation is the relationships. And I think that's so important. And really hearing both of you speak on this, you're really hearing that heartbeat, that this is our vision. And it's more than, it's not a destination, right? It's not a thing you achieve.
It's the fertile ground for other things to grow. And at one of the PVI meetings, Deb, I remember just standing up and saying, what we want is a place, a community in which people feel safe enough to be who they are. And then the brilliance will come out. And remember, safe enough to be who you are is not the world we live in. Talk to any academic or any professional or any performer. They don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So the issue is, what would life be like if we felt safe enough to be who we are?
Yeah. My tagline on my website is safe enough to fall in love with life. It's about being safe enough. Yeah.
The poet shows.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering as we with all of this, like how, because this is obviously you guys have been playing in this sandbox, if you will, this for a long time now, and I'm sure it's evolved a bit and shifted a bit. And I'm wondering, looking at, just for the listeners who are either new to polyvagal theory, and maybe the people who've been in the family for a while but want to hear a fresh kind of version of it, like, can we speak a bit about how you both see and or play with the three organizing principles, with the hierarchy, the neuroception, and co-regulation? Can you speak a bit more detailed about that from your perspectives now, after kind of being in this for so many years?
I'm going to let Deb do that, because Deb is the reducer of principles. I am the conservative scientist who keeps adding more principles.
He does. I love it. How many are you up to now?
I don't know. I can remember the three. So let's start there.
Well, that's kind of like B-sides, though, Steve. It's like, that's why artists have B-sides. Is that hey, this is all the stuff that we couldn't put on the album. It's a whole other album, but important.
Well, it's nuanced. And the issue is the global ones are the three. But to get to those, you have to have okay, so how did we even get to the three?
Right.
It was really based upon literally the evolution of the autonomic nervous system and what the species gains when it has that ventral vagal system, it has a social engagement, it can nurse, can do all those things. So the social engagement system, which is not listed as a principle, becomes the turning point in evolution of mammalian species, and actually is the cornerstone of humanity. It's this ability to, in a sense, it starts off with nursing, but it's the same circuit that's used for social behavior, same circuit that gives prosodic features and voice, same circuit that gives smiles and intonation of voice. So I get caught into some of the weeds because that's who I am. So Deb, you go with it now.
I love that you're in the weeds, and I love your evolution of the nervous system, which led to my simplifying into the three states first, and then the way those states dance together, right? So the nursing that leads to social engagement, in our work in therapy or in our work as humans, allows us to connect, to communicate, to feel safe in each other's presence. That's that newest part of our nervous system. And so we can begin to get to know that place. And then as you begin to feel a bit under threat, your brilliant work showed us we go to sympathetic. That's the first place we go, fight and flight, and feel flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. I think every human can relate to that. That is a common human response, right? And one that we see. It's easy to see it happen in others. And then if that doesn't resolve the problem, what you've given us is understanding the state of collapse, disconnect, shutdown, disappear. Look like I'm going through the motions, but I'm not really here. And until you created that hierarchy in that way through your work, early work with neonates, we had no idea about that. And that is what we see in clinical work. That's what we feel in our personal lives. And we had no way to understand it until you gave that to us.
So Deb, that was a shock to me. So I would be invited to these talks, and I talk about the polyvagal theory and this hierarchy. And suddenly, literally, people froze in space and time because suddenly they had a narrative.
Yeah.
They had an explanation. And for many clients and many therapists who have had trauma, they were really, their therapists would argue with them.
Right.
That didn't happen. They were angry and they wanted to fight and flee. They didn't understand that the body, when it gets overwhelmed, has its own conservation system, and that is to shut down. Yeah. And pragmatically, it's so obvious because the metabolic demands of fight-flight can't go on forever.
Right.
Where it's a feedback loop. It just can't maintain it.
Right.
So the body has to go into a conservation cycle.
Yeah.
But the issue was that was the point. And you're right, Deb. That was the point that affected the world of trauma. That was the one that gave it the traction.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's harder to see. We see people in that state and we make up a story. And the story is about moral meaning or motivation, or, they're not trying, they're bored, rather than, oh my God, they're collapsed, right? And I remember the first one of the first workshops I gave, and I talk about we have a home away from home in one of these survival states. My home away from home is dorsal. It's always been. I don't think that's going to change. And when I said that, half the room breathed a sigh of relief and went, oh my God, it's mine too. And I've always felt so ashamed of that. So you've given us the science behind all that, which has helped so many people be able to claim this is what happens to me. And it's simply my nervous system acting in service of my survival rather than this story of shame that, other people have put on me. So it's really brilliant. Yeah.
Well, over time, when I played with time. Like I moved myself back, what was it like 30 years ago? And so you relive certain situations and you realize that so much of what people said about mental health, and including diagnostic categories like autism, doesn't make any sense from a neurobiological, physiological, and evolutionary perspective. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yet it was pushed on us. And the emphasis, of course, on behavioral modification, and that led into CBT as well as the mode of controlling, because behavior was controllable, and we need to treat everything, including physiology, as if it were like a behavior. And there's an aside that's being in the paper that I'm writing on the origin of all this. In the late 1960s and early 70s, a very famous colleague by the name of Neil Miller, was writing papers about operant control of autonomic functions, meaning heart rate and blood pressure, and showing that they followed the rules of behavioral learning. And there was all this discussion that he would get a Nobel Prize for that until they tried to replicate his findings. And the real reason it was unable to be replicated is that they were so concerned about motor behavior, confounding the learning of the autonomics, that they paralyzed the subjects. But the drug, they were animal studies, but the drugs that they used not only paralyzed the skeletal motor system, they paralyzed the vagus.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
They turned off the vagus. So you couldn't control heart rate or blood pressure with vagal disconnection, because now you have high heart rates and blood pressure is going high, and you don't have the flexibility anymore. So it was just physiologically naive to think that you could control these. And that was in the late 60s, and it got a lot of traction as something that was really going to get a Nobel Prize.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing that other organizing principle that you gave us, neuroception, I love that you created that word. And I say that all the time. I have everybody say it with me because I love that word. Yeah. I think it's so descriptive of how the nervous system listens and takes in information, but helping people understand those three pathways, that inside-outside between pathway of neuroception, and that it's happening all the time. Below our level of awareness. And until we bring perception to it, it's simply going to move you somewhere on the hierarchy. That has opened up the experience of so many people, because they can then bring perception and say, what are the cues of danger? What are the cues of safety? That is shifting this equation in this moment.
So Deb, the bridge is really through interoception. So neuroception, the reason the word was invented was that I played with the word perception and realized that if I said perception, people would take responsibility. And if they didn't detect these signals, they would be taking blame and shame. So I basically used the term neuroception, which really is detection, not perception, and basically opened the world for other types of research to study those features. However, neuroception does trigger a visceral reaction. That visceral reaction, we are aware of that through interoception. That is the critical point. So we get triggered, we feel it, and then we try to make sense out of those feelings. And that's the storyline. And if we take that time or space between the reaction and our narrative, our behavior, then we can do something.
So slowing that down for a second for those listening, there's three things happening I'm hearing, right? You got the neuroception, interoception, and then the story. Can we speak a little bit more about that? Because I think that's such an important piece of those, like the interplay there with all three of those.
So the neuroception, you have no control over. It occurs. And when we talk about getting perception of neuroception, that's not really what you're getting. You're getting more refined perception over your interoception, and therefore you're interpreting it in a different way. So it's being refined. So let's say we have a reflex, get a physiological response. That physiological response is detected through a process called interoception. I am feeling something. Now, with people who have trauma, they can't even tell you what they're feeling usually. There's a sense of numbness, which means the feedback loops have been distorted as an adaptive strategy for them to survive. So if you're in a painful, horrible situation and you're getting triggered all the time, it's obvious that it's better for your body to downregulate its feedback loops. That's why embodiment becomes our goal, because we're losing the experience of being a human. And so interoception is the feedback of our bodily organs to our brain. And often it may be pain, but in general, interoception is not pain. It's like pleasure from, I'm enjoying eating foods. I have a sense of satiety. I enjoy sexual arousal is an interoceptive bit. And so you start seeing all these interoceptive features are being dampened in people who have severe trauma histories as an adaptive way of coping with this dangerous world they're in. But the issue is, what is the goal of a therapeutic model? Is to re-embody the person so they have the feelings that are literally wired into their nervous system and not shut down.
And I like to we slow it down and we feel the outcome of neuroception, of interoception. It moves us somewhere on that hierarchy. And if we slow it down and can really get concrete about what are the cues that are coming in that then move me in this place, we can begin to list them and we can see them. So we're taking a step back from, so that I can be with differently. And that's been really helpful for clients to look at it as an equation, right? When the cues of danger outweigh the cues of safety, you're going to move into a survival response, because that's what an adaptive survival response, that's what it's meant to do. And I love that Steve always taught me, you put adaptive in front of survival response, always. There's a reason for it. So that's been helpful. And we want to shift that equation. How can we deepen the cues of safety and reduce or resolve cues of danger so that then we're ready to engage, right? And so we're doing that moment to moment all the time. Right? So bringing it into active awareness is what's helpful. What, as Steve says, coming back into your body feels terrifying for so many of us. So how do we do it? Well, we can do it, on paper by having a bit of safe distance from it, looking at concretely what is in the environment, what is in my connection with others. So it gives us a way to move forward safely. So we did hierarchy, the beautiful evolutionary. We did neuroception, which is always fun to think about. So that leaves us with co-regulation, which is the one I always end with, and probably the one I should always start with, right, Steve?
I'm listening.
I am too. I'm all ears, Deb.
I think co-regulation is, I talk about, we've got these competing imperatives, the drive to survive and the longing to connect. Right. And they're happening all the time. And like with you two today, my longing to connect is met with a sense of this feels safe and welcoming. So then move forward and be in that connection. But if it felt dangerous or a bit, unnerving to me, my drive to survive would keep me from really leaning into that connection. I think that's what's going on all the time.
Well, what's going on, let's kind of put it on the table. We're in a world that understands that if you keep people frightened, they can't connect. They can't share experiences. They can't co-regulate. They can only amplify their own fear of being injured. So we basically have a world that is chronically being traumatized. And so what we're seeing is saying political this, whatever we want to call it, is, again, created by people not feeling safe enough to be who they are. And that's unambiguous. In the sense, if we start talking about, we don't have to talk about anything. We understand what it is, that the bodies are going, in a sense, getting more like this. As long as you're like this, it's all about survival. It's adaptive survival of me. I don't have any generosity.
Right.
I don't have benevolence. And I really, even though I may, on an intellectual level, care about others, I have priorities. Take care of myself and my family.
Yeah. And what I say when I teach is it's not that you're unwilling to be generous or be benevolent or be connecting. You're biologically unable.
Yeah.
Right. Because we
I
want to
use
change
terms.
that. Yeah.
I use terms like you give your nervous system permission.
Yeah.
That when you shift those states, you're literally giving the nervous system permission to do its own regulatory functions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of the joy of understanding our nervous systems through your brilliant work is to then know that I can be responsible for what I'm putting out into the world. I can begin to have strategies to come to regulation, whether they're things I do by myself or connecting with others. And as I'm regulated, I then am putting that out into the world. Right.
That's actually really interesting to focus on. What happens with awareness is a different type of responsibility.
Yeah.
And this is really what I was saying to the therapists in Israel, that you can't, of course, they could broadcast their anxiety and discomfort, but as a therapist, that's not their objective. As a parent, it's not our objective.
Right.
As a spouse, as a friend,
Right.
as a mentor, we basically have roles of helping people feel contained, sufficiently contained to be co-regulatory.
Yeah. So we'll just broaden that out to say as a human. Right? It's a human responsibility to be regulated when I can, to know when I'm not, to have pathways to come back and to do the repair from the ruptures that I've made when I'm dysregulated.
So when I worked on a paper on what I was basically the roots of sociality, which is what we're talking about, and I realized that even commerce, business, is based upon this predictability of a co-regulatory relationship, and that rules and regulations are that. And we start to have to sit back and realize that as a species, we're very co-regulated. There's not rampant arguments or fighting on the streets. We're a pretty well regulated species, even under these severe conditions that are not sufficient to calm us. We in a sense, we all want the benevolent parent or parents to tell us everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of soaking this in, but the thing that stood out to me again with all the ways in which we can become dysregulated, disconnected in the society and then separate from and stuck in survival states and kind of focused on really this self, like the lowercase s of like just my survival or my family's survival, and how sometimes that's the most adaptive thing we can do depending on where we reside. The thing that keeps sticking out to me among everything we talked about, I mean, a lot is, but the one thing that you said earlier, Steve, was, and this is kind of, we're going to kind of wrap up today, is this concept of leveraging our presence. Like that to me was just a beautiful way of saying like leveraging our presence, like 3 words, leveraging our, 3, I had to count per second. Sorry. Is that 3 words? And I'm wondering 2 things, and feel free to share and expand however little or much, but what would that look like if we leverage our presence in this world globally? And then maybe more practically, what would that look like in Steve's life and Deb's life today about leveraging presence? I know you kind of spoke to it, but just to kind of leave those listening with this kind of this big vision as well as practical application.
Well, I'll start off. I think we're doing that with PVI. I think we're doing that with international partners. And basically, when we go internationally to meetings, people have this expectation already that they're coming into a space that has a degree of accessibility, and their own personal experiences of being literally bathed in an accessible space for many of them has been transformative. I'm in many ways surprised, but pleasantly surprised that the ambience of what Deb and I are doing has been so contagious.
I like that word, contagious. I talk about that when I teach that ventral vagal energy that I love is, I think of it as an unstoppable force, and it's contagious, right? It's contagious both in direct contact and indirectly as we're just moving through the world in a regulated way. It gets broadcast to all the nervous systems around us. So, I think you're right, Steve. I think, we go places and people get the benefit of that. And then they go places. And I have this image, which I would love to figure out how to bring to life. It's that ripple that just, it's taking over the world, right? Which is what we need.
But the ripple, what is not really coming out from us. It's in everyone.
It is.
This is the whole irony of this whole notion of connectedness.
Yeah.
It's our natural state is to connect.
Yeah.
Our natural state is to trust. And what we have to do is inhibit that natural state to survive in dangerous worlds.
Yeah.
And that's been totally generalized in our education, our medical world, everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I say every human has a ventral vagal system. It's just waiting to come alive. Right. And your nervous system knows the way there. We just have to get on that path and you'll get there. And I think for me, that's incredibly hopeful. And as I say that to people, they feel it.
Yeah.
There's a hope you have brought hopefulness to the world, truly. Yeah.
I share the optimism, and I use terms like a autonomic nervous system that is retuned to be locked into a state of threat. Yeah. And then I have this kind of other phrase, which is many individuals' nervous systems are reluctant to relinquish their defenses. In a sense, they'll fight to keep it on.
Yeah.
And the reason they fight is because of the vulnerability that this creates.
Yeah. The cues of danger outweigh the cues of safety, and it's because we think ventral is wonderful. It's a health giving place, and yet it's also incredibly scary for a nervous system that hasn't been there often and hasn't found safety there yet. So I get that. It's hard. It's hard work to invite people in. So gently, softly. Persistence, patience, all those things that are needed. Yeah.
Accessibility.
Yep. Yeah.
Accessibility. I always think of I play music and, the tuning, you said tuning earlier. I always think if my guitar is tuned a bit, it could be in tune with itself, sharp or flat. And so you won't actually pick it up as being out of tune. Now, if this is the image I give people, is if I play alone and I'm sharp, maybe a half step up. Sorry for those musicians, whatever. Then it's going to sound fine because all the strings, all six, are in tune with one another. But if I go and sit with a community, maybe sit at a pub or something and play, there's going to be dissonance because I'm out of tune with their nervous system. Something is, and I say that going back to curiosity, like, okay, why, what happened? Oh, I need to retune here. And how do I practice retuning my instrument to be in tune with the rest of the members sitting and playing,
Thinking about that and thinking we want people's nervous systems to come into tune with systems that are regulated. So we want your out of tune guitar to be surrounded by in tune guitars, and then they'll be welcomed in, right?
Because then you get a sense, that's what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's an invitation, not an othering. It's like, what? Okay. And then you're right. If we're all here and you come in, it's like, oh, Deb, it's okay. It's like, oh, that's what, when I'm in that space, the beauty that comes from adding that to all the other instruments, it creates this tapestry of beauty, really. Man, this is awesome. This is great. I'm mindful of time, but I thank you both for today, and just I'm excited to see where Wired for Connection goes in this kind of narrative and kind of the legacy of what you both have done, are doing, and will continue to do, and kind of how, like you both have shared, how we're all taking this and the ripple effect of the impact it's having in really all of life. Leveraging our presence and inviting in, not othering, but realizing that we really are, our foundational core is wired to connect. Yeah. So I thank you both so much, and blessings to you both today. Thanks for listening to Wired for Connection, a polyvagal podcast produced by Polyvagal Institute. New episodes of this podcast are published monthly. Follow Polyvagal Institute on social media to learn more about upcoming guests and episode release dates. To learn more about polyvagal theory and support PVI on their mission to create a safer and more connected world, visit their website at polyvagal.org.